Hello there, I thought I'd try something fun here for Dragon Quest VII's 20th anniversary, which is the 26th of August. This is the English version of the game here. See on the title screen, Heartbeat developed it along with Art Piazza and NX were the publishers, of course. One of the interesting kind of things about it is that Heartbeat were the developer of Dragon Quest VI as well, and in a lot of ways Dragon Quest VII picks up from 6 in terms of the style of the game, the heavy vignetting that's going on here, compared to, say, Dragon Quest V, which has a very linear story progression, or Dragon Quest IV with the chapters, stories featuring each character. So these ones are sort of more focused on these short stories that happen from town to town, and in Dragon Quest VI it was from the real world and the dream world, and in Dragon Quest VII it's from the different time periods that you visit the various islands in. So it's an interesting approach to it, and I think it gives the game a lot of variety and also really pads out the length. This was one of these things that Dragon Quest VII and Final Fantasy VII were announced for the PlayStation around about the same time, but Dragon Quest VII had predated that announcement. It was originally going to be, I think, an N64 game, and some people have kind of talked about it being on the Saturn as well. I'm not sure how truthful that is, or if it's maybe a bit of lost in translation information there, because I know that Yuji Naka, the creator of Sonic and one of the creators of Sonic there and working at Sega, had talked about mocking up a 3D Dragon Quest prototype to show NX to running on the Saturn, and so I wonder if people didn't kind of conflate the two things. I don't know if that information was out there until recently or whatever else, but as far as I know, I can't see any info on Dragon Quest VII turning up on the Saturn. Of course, this would have come out contemporaneously with, I don't know, Final Fantasy IX. I think in fact Final Fantasy IX was delayed to make room for Dragon Quest VII's release. So we have here some FMV, which was the style of the time, and it's kind of funny because this game almost appears to be trapped in time itself. When it was announced 1995 or so, 96, and didn't come out then until 2000. It looks very much like a first generation PlayStation game in a lot of ways. You know, the graphics are nothing really to write home about. It's actually quite an ugly looking game, but there's some good aspects about it too, I think. I actually, you know, I there's a certain charm to it in a way. The Goji Sugiyama soundtrack you can hear in the background here. This is probably the, like, well, I don't know, 8 was pretty good as well, but I'd say, you know, 7 and 8 were the last time he was really doing good work and not just phoning it in. I do think there's some nice songs in Dragon Quest X. The battle theme is very good, especially the orchestrated version of it. I like that Shintaro Majima gets a shout out here, because I think that he does some good work in how the game looks overall. As I said, like it's kind of an ugly looking game, but I think that that's intentional in a way, because if you look at the box art, even for I think it was when Akira Toriyama just started using Photoshop, and so the shading is pretty non-existent. It's kind of a flat color palette that's going on. The characters are a little bit kind of ugly in a way. Like even the main guy, he's not as typically handsome as a Dragon Quest protagonist. He's maybe a little kind of pudgy around the face, a little sort of scrappy looking, kind of youthful looking compared to some of the other guys. You know, usually they're kids or whatever else, but this guy looks particularly young, I think, which is kind of fun. You see that lizard there, which doesn't really come up in the game at all. He's in the art and he's in that scene, but he's not really in the game too much at all. So I wonder what the situation is there, if that wasn't something that was planned to be more of a thing, and then it didn't end up making it too much into the game. You see a little bit of that same idea in 8 with the little mouse that runs around, and I wonder if there wasn't ever a point when the lizard was going to run around as well. So Maribel's here, she's talking to you on the beach. I actually do like the way that it looks, and I like the way that you're given a choice right off the bat here if you're going to say yes or no. Now, of course, the best thing to do in any Dragon Quest game is to always say no straight off and see if you get anything funny that comes up. But this is kind of amusing as well. She says, "Oh, I mean, a few words," and of course, like generally, you only really ever get to communicate with these games through yes or no. In this game, actually, like Maribel doesn't come across in this translation, I don't think, as much as a kind of scold or a brat as she does in the retranslation that you got with the 3DS remake. I think they really amped up the Sundari aspect of her character there. But with this one, I mean, I think she's just sort of, you know, your buddy, and sometimes she'll give out to you, but not too much. I think she's pretty good. I like this now when you get on the beach here and you can sort of look around. They have some nice detailing in the environments. I like the way that, like outside your dad's house, there's a boat there, fishing village. You got the nets and things. There's these cats. Let's see if we can't say hello to the cat. Hello, cat. He's just not saying much. Meow. This one. Let's see. Oh, double meow. It's our third cat, I wonder. Let's go see how many cats we can find. Only 2 cats so far. No dogs in this village. I suppose the cats hang around because there's so much fish. Plentiful supply of fish, and they're probably scoping out the nets when everyone's gone to sleep. We'll go inside the hero's house here and take a look around. I like this aspect of the game that you can, you know, there's a lot more to kind of poke around in than there is maybe in other Dragon Quest games before this. Obviously you can still look through drawers and shelves and look at bookcases and things, but you can also look at these hanging bags and things on the wall. Don't think you could do that in 6. One thing that you do kind of get a holdover from 6 with is this nice detailing in the graphics here. Like you'll see here with the fireplace, they've kind of done a little illumination on the tiling around it, so it looks like you're seeing you know, the light from the flame of the fire, and that's a very Dragon Quest VI-ish look. I mean, obviously, you know, Dragon Quest VI was at the, well, not obviously I suppose, but Dragon Quest VI was at the pinnacle really of the SNES in terms of how it looked. I think it's one of the better looking games on the Super Nintendo, whereas Dragon Quest VII is not a very handsome game at all. It's in fact quite an ugly looking game in many places, particularly the FMVs, which, as I said, were the style of the time. You feel like they were kind of chasing some of the trends there, but I mean, really, you know, the thing that you kind of come back to reading the magazines around the time and all these sorts of things is that it didn't really matter what they did with Dragon Quest. I mean, like, there was probably some resistance, I'm sure, if you look at the articles, to even having a 3D camera, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how it goes. People are still going to be interested in it. I mean, the only one that we really saw a big backlash to and then detrimental to sales was 10, which maybe is a bit of a special case. I mean, it eventually squeaked over 1 million, but it wasn't the case that you're having these, you know, 2 million, 3 million plus sales on the first day. And I think that Dragon Quest VII went on to be the best selling PlayStation 1 game at the very end of its lifetime. You know, everyone had one in their house, and the PS1 ONE was out at that stage, and you know, people were well able for it. And there's your mum. I think they changed her name for the 3DS version. I think she had a different name. Not sure. Not sure what her name was in the Japanese one. I haven't played that version of the game. People kind of talk about this one being a massive localization undertaking, and there's that famous picture that goes around of the bookshelf full of binders of the story. And I mean, like, the story is dense. There's just sort of a feeling that they never stopped writing it. Maybe that, like, you know, they had these 4 or 5 years to make the game, and they just kept writing and writing and writing. And so I think what you see is a lot of remake, or a lot of reuse of assets and things. Like, you know, there's not a lot of unique sprites for villagers and things like that, which is kind of a holdover from earlier games, but because of that, you get to have a real breadth of content and a real amount of content in here that you wouldn't really see. I mean, it's kind of like you were waiting so long, and now you get to play this game for a very long time. And people talk about the fact that this intro sequence here takes about 3 hours or so to get to the point where you're actually fighting a slime. I don't know if that's really the case. I think you could probably shave it down to about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, if you tried. Oh, delicious fish sub. Sounds not something you'd really want to be carrying around in a way, because, you know, it would spoil. It wouldn't be so nice, I wouldn't think. I was going to play through the first section of the game here and try and get up to the point where you fight a slime, but even just kind of talking about it now, I realize that it's probably too much of an undertaking to do with the video capture. It'll probably be a huge file, but I'll say that there's some interesting aspects to the design of this first bit of the game. You know, you don't fight any monsters for a long time, and one of the things that Yuji Horii talked about when he was designing the game is that they were thinking about PC adventure games at the time. Like Myst was really big, you know, when they first started development, and Riven had come out since then, and other games in that vein, you know, your HyperCard style Mac adventure games where you're clicking around and poking at things. And so they had seen those, and he was interested in that himself, Yuji Horii. And of course, you know, he was one of the progenitors of the adventure style game on consoles and PCs in Japan with the Port-a-Pier games and his other murder mystery games before Dragon Quest. And so it's interesting to see him kind of take that sensibility and put it into a game like Dragon Quest. But I think the expectation in here is that you were waiting for so long for the game, you were going to play it for a long time, and there's a lot to discover. And I'd say that if you haven't played it, or if you have played it, or maybe, you know, haven't gone back to it in a while, it is worth jumping into again, because it's unlike other games in the series, the start of it. And I think, you know, it is unique in the series in a sense, in that there's just so much of it, and the stories are so good. There's many moments in this game that'll get you teary-eyed, and I love the way you always arrive to the towns. Well, I shouldn't say love, but one of the interesting things is that you always seem to arrive to the stories like a little bit too late to actually really affect what's going on. So I appreciate that. There's some good storytelling, and I think the time travel was in vogue at the moment as well. You could probably see Yuji Horii taking some of his experience from Chrono Trigger as well, mixing it into both 6 and 7. And then of course Akira Toriyama providing the art, but Dragon Ball had gone through its own time traveling nonsense with Trunks and everything at this stage. So I think there's a lot of that in the air, and it all came together to make what's a very special game, and a great sort of swan song for the PlayStation 1. You had to wait the whole the whole generation to get it, but I think it was definitely worth it. And here's to 20 years of Dragon Quest VII, as the priest will save our game here, and we'll see what we can do. Oh, he won't save our game yet because we have to go see our dad, but I will pause it and I'll give a little panorama here of the our little swoop around of the view, and we'll see what we can see out to sea here. There we are. Goodbye.